for coming to our first meeting of the year. And our first order, we're going to have a pledge of allegiance, and we're going to ask a young lady who's been with the agency a number of years, and unfortunately, we're losing her to a crosstown rival right there. But Pam, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Right hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to America, stand one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you much. When my grandson comes to visit, the first place he goes to visit Pam, and Pam's shows him around and gives him treats, and we know where you're at though, Pam. We'll move on to the roll call, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Division 7, Gary Van Dam.
Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller.
Here.
Division 5, Robert Paris. Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Drew Mercy. Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 4, George Lane.
Here.
General Manager Knutson.
Here.
General Counsel Markman.
Here.
And General Counsel Kim.
Here.
And Holly Hughes present.
Hey, thank you much. Next order is going to be election of the officers. We have the president and the vice president. And so motion.
I'll make a motion. This is Director Donato on 4A1 that we re-elect George Lane as president and for vice president Gary Van Dam.
I'll second the motion. This is Keith.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, we have a second.
Frank, George, that doesn't work. Although we're used to nominations, this is a straight motion.
I'm not hearing that. Can you please repeat that?
Okay, let me repeat it. There's a motion on the floor in a second.
Okay.
It's not a nomination process where you get a bunch of people in
Okay,
play.
so a vote would be in order.
Vote would be in order, correct?
Okay, thank you. Madam Secretary, you get a roll call vote?
Mr. President?
Yes.
Particularly, there could be an amendment to that motion. So you should at least entertain that.
Well, that's appropriate if there's
Well, wait a minute, this is a little tricky. We looked into this carefully because we anticipated possible procedural issues. That's under Robert's Rules of Order, you would have other kinds of motions you could make, but we don't have Robert's Rules of Order. Holly looked for it, I looked for it. It's never been adopted for the district. So all you have is plain old motion practice because there's nothing telling you what to do with these other motions because the body of Robert's Rules of Order does not apply here, George.
Yes, so, that's been my understanding of the years also. We don't know the rules of order.
So, Mr. President, I would call for a point of order. The agenda calls for nomination of the president and then the vice president, not as a dual motion.
Okay, we'll yield to our counsel. What would be appropriate on that?
I think that raises a good question because it asks people to make two decisions at the same time, puts the board in the position of having to do all or nothing. So I think it would be more appropriate to split that into two motions.
Okay.
And if that's the case, I would move to have George Lane as president.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Paris. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion. This is Keith.
Do we have a second? Okay, yeah, Director Dias. Okay,
For the first motion, we have first motion on the floor. We gotta do that first.
The first motion on the floor, I raised a point of order to, and it's invalid because it calls for us to make two decisions.
It's not, Rob, you're wrong.
No, Frank.
This agency has done it many times.
Well, then they've done it wrong many times.
What does the say?
Then Frank, let's let our attorney decide. let's let our attorney decide.
Okay, our legal counsel, if you can go ahead and comment on that again, please.
Again, I'll comment on this because it's on the agenda with two different items. You could try to combine them if there's a unanimous vote, but if there isn't, it forces people to make two decisions on one motion where they may have wanted to vote for part of it, but not for all of it. So the point of order, I think, is well taken in this circumstance. So should take it one motion at a time, one position at a time.
Okay, we'll take in, Madam Secretary, if you get a roll call.
Ms. Cooper.
I have a question, do we have to retract the original motion?
Original motion.
Why the first motion?
The first motion was not valid.
Mr. President, and let our attorney decide, but I believe the first motion was an invalid motion because it did cause to make different decisions and different votes. I think that's what our attorney ruled. So that motion is invalid, and then the motion that I made to have you president is the motion before the floor. But certainly we should listen to our attorney's advice.
Are you declining that the motion I made for the vice president is irrelevant or incompetent?
No, Frank, you can't. No problem.
No, it was an invalid. Well, let our attorney decide.
Let me speak to this, Frank.
Our attorney could,
There's a point of order that was raised which questioned the validity of the motion, which I wouldn't have volunteered anything on if people accept all the people voting on it accepted it. But that didn't happen. So the point of order is this. You don't know who.
Mr. Markman, can you speak up just a little bit?
Okay.
Mr. Markman?
Sorry, you can't hear me. Wow.
Oh.
Anyway, so because the point of order is correct, the first motion is not in order, and you can go ahead with the vote on the second motion. The whole problem is that this confuses two offices, and you can't tell who's advocating which office when you try to do both at once. And I think this whole discussion kind of shows that. So I think the proper action next is to vote on the motion for George to be reelected president.
First one.
okay,
Okay.
Madam Secretary, we can have the roll call.
Wait, point of order. Mr. Markman, can you restate that? I didn't quite understand.
The only proper motion in front of the board right now, I'll do it even simpler. The proper motion in front of the board.
We can't hear you, Mr. Markman. Can you speak into your speaker, please?
Okay, can you hear me now?
No.
Not great, but we have Tilden here too. I think if Tilden wants to weigh in or can.
Just go ahead and restate.
I got it fixed.
Louder, please.
I've got it fixed, I'm sorry. So I think the point is that the only valid motion pending is a motion to elect George as president, re-elect him as president, since the first motion was not in order. Go from that point.
And clarification, Mr. Markman, that's the motion I made to elect George. That was seconded, and I don't know if that was by Audrey or Keith. What did we show?
It was Drew and Keith, and I think George mentioned Keith's name. So it was.
Well, Holly, I made the motion.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear who made the second or who you recorded.
Keith Dias.
Okay, great.
Spoke at the same time as Drew. But
And that is the motion before the board at this time. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Madam Secretary, we can have the roll call.
Wait, George,
Oh,
point
wait.
of order.
Which motion? The first motion? Jim or the second?
First motion, Jim.
The first motion?
The motion you're voting on is the one that board member Paris made to elect George president.
And the only
That's all.
point of order, Mr. President, I would like to make is after the motion is made and seconded, we need to have time for discussion if there is any. And if there's not, then we can proceed to the vote rather than just rushing to the vote.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Fair enough. Again, Madam Secretary.
so your motion was for president and vice president. Mr.
No,
No.
Holly, that
Right.
motion was out of order.
Right, right. I'm just clarifying with Frank here that his motion was for president and vice president. And we're not, you said that was a point of order and that that's what the attorney said, that attorney Markman.
Yeah, don't
It's
take on a Holly. I made the point of order. The attorney ruled that my motion is the opposite motion on the floor. So,
Okay, Jim, you're wrong. The first motion there's nothing legal about the first motion, illegal about the first motion. The motion was made to make the nominate a president, vice president in the same motion as pertain to our election officer and our code of ethics on 4A1. It doesn't separate the two. If it separated the two, then my motion wouldn't count. Here, my motion does count, is a priority, and it's legal that this motion was 4A1. It says president and vice president. I made a motion for the president and I made a motion for the vice president. If you want to separate this, then this agenda is wrong, because what Rob's saying is that he can make a separate nomination without nominating the president.
Okay, Frank, I understand your point. Let me try to clarify a little bit more.
I've been doing this for 38 years. You think I don't know what I'm talking about?
Frank, you have a lawyer that's telling you
Yeah.
you're wrong, and you have two lawyers that are telling you you're wrong. Well,
Rules of order, he is wrong at this point.
Let's go ahead and hear from
I beg to differ.
Okay. Can we hear from council again, please?
Yeah, let me do this one more layer and hope that this is understood. The problem with combining two offices is it's not necessarily a vote on that forces somebody to make a choice of two people where they would have definitely made the choice for one of the two, but no motion ever pops up that gives them the combination that they favor. That's the problem. I think that's a problem. And I think we have a duty, an obligation to elect both a president and a vice president. And I don't think putting combinations of that in front of the board compromises the ability to take one at a time. And it could be a board member supported, could be 5 board members supported the president, but you can never get a majority to vote any other member in as vice president. That's the problem, or vice versa. That's the problem. It puts an extra burden on electing anyone to either one of those offices to combine them.
But the question is AVEC restricted from doing that?
I think yes, I think it puts the validity of the motion in play, because they're two different items, 2 different offices, and that don't have to go in a pair like a vote for president and vice president of the United States.
Mr. President?
That's
Director Mercer.
I move we uphold the recommendation of our attorney.
I second that motion. Not that we should have a motion to uphold what our attorney is advising us.
They're not the law, and they're not the rules of law.
Neither are you, Frank.
I'm just following the law.
Well, no, you're not.
If you don't have time to go through it, our Madam Secretary knows. She knows exactly that the first motion on this agenda is what's first.
Frank, I have studied parliamentary procedure. I have been chairman of parliamentary procedure teams. I think Mr. Markman is exactly right. If you want to say what your qualifications are, other than being on the board for 30 years, then go ahead.
Not the age side, okay?
Okay, we have a motion. The last motion, Drew, is that something the legal counsel we need to consider that? Because you already have.
If we're ready to proceed on withdrawal, I thought that would be the
On the vote,
way
on the
to
vote.
make a decision.
Okay, Madam Secretary, if we could have the roll call.
Wait, clarify what we're having the roll call on, please.
This is for the president, right?
President, thank you.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Rob Parrish,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, and we wanted discussion before we order that, Richard?
No, I think you did it right, George. You let us have discussion after the motion was made and seconded. And I think we did everything right on that. I think now you're ready for nominations for vice president.
Well, thank you, motion carries, and I appreciate the board's, confidence.
a little caution,
I'm
George.
moving board order A1, and to elect Gary Van Dam as vice president. I'm going off of the board order A1. I'm nominating Gary Van Dam as vice president.
Can we take that as a motion, Frank? Again, I want to say it's not a nomination procedure, just one motion.
Question on that?
Because on page 4 of our agenda packet, it calls for nominations.
Well, that's an
It
error.
has multiple spaces for multiple people. I just want to make sure we're doing it the right way.
I just take this one as a straight motion to elect Gary as vice president.
Mr. Markman, I agree with Drew. If you look at on our board order 4A1, it does, the board of directors adopted the following board order on January 14, 2025. And it says nominations for vice president. For president, there was only one nomination. It was the one I made, motion. And this calls for nominations of more than one person. If there's more than one person, can be nominated with a second by a board member. It's pretty clear. This is a form that is provided in our minutes and to all the public, and we should operate by what the public has been given.
Well, I'm
Okay, I'll answer that one too, Rob. I don't agree with you. Sorry.
I'm
The
sorry, what?
nomination, the word nomination, the fact it's in your agenda doesn't change state law, then that is that a motion is made to elect the board offices unless you have some other procedure you adopted. Even Robert's Rules of Order in a small assembly like this does not call for nominations, because where you're going to end up is you could have
Mr.
four,
Martin.
excuse me, you could have
No.
four
Yes,
nominations.
sir. I'm sorry.
You could have four nominations theoretically for the position of vice president. You'd have no way to vote on them. You have a simultaneous problem. You can't just hand out secret ballots because the vote's required to be oral. So I've never seen one of the a nomination process work at this level of local government level. And if you want to call it a nomination, let me put it this way.
From our legal counsel, you know, we have a motion and a second. Can we vote?
Yes.
Mr. President, and I would like to end my discussion if you'd allow me.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Markman, are you still, can I make a comment to you?
Of course you can. You're the boss.
Thank you, Mr. Markman. Look at page 4 of our agenda packet. This was the agenda packet that was sent out to the public. You approved it. It was approved to go out to the public. It clearly shows that nominations can have 2 names with motions and seconds. If this isn't correct, then you provided incorrect information to the public, and I don't know what the remedy is. Maybe we need to put the vice president election over till the next meeting so that we can clear up this inaccuracy to the public, or we may face litigation. And I think the last thing we want to do is face litigation over the election of one of our officers.
Okay, I'll respond to that. First of all, I did not receive and look at this agenda today, would have been, or last week, and look for things like you're looking for. It was, for me, clear. You see that all the time, and I must have corrected this approach 100 times. And what the law provides is you've got to select or elect these board officers. It doesn't say you have to have a nomination process. And I don't think that's a big enough error on the agenda to misinform the public that what's going to happen tonight is the election of 2 officers. It says election of 2 board officers. And there's no process. There's no process, even if you have Robert rules apply to this, Rob, it wouldn't have a nomination process for these board offices.
I beg to differ with you, Mr. Markman, but I do believe that it was your responsibility to review the agenda and provide a clear agenda to the public. And I think you should give us a remedy to make sure there's no litigation involved in us selecting a board officer. That would be horrible.
That mean the entire agenda is irrelevant?
No,
just, I mean, when you just make the rules.
No,
And it's on here right here for the general public. If they come here to see this agenda, I made a motion to nominate the vice president the way you want to separate it. And now you don't like that either.
No, all I want you to do is look at page 4, Frank, and see how we can remedy this for the public, because it is confusing.
Tomorrow I'll just file a complaint with the.
Okay, let's talk about,
Have them take it out, how's that?
Well,
I'd be happy to do that.
Frank, you say a lot of things that you never do,
Oh,
and
yes,
you
sir.
haven't been here
Yes,
for,
sir.
you haven't been here for 6 months.
Neither have you.
Oh, no, I have.
Oh, okay, gentlemen, we have a,
That's a little, well,
okay, well,
we have a.
George, can I give,
We can-
let me give one last response to Rob.
Please speak up a little bit, Mr. Markman. We can hear you.
Well, okay. Here's what I think. The Brown Act requires an agenda item to give a rational, reasonable member of the public an idea of what kind of action can be taken that night. This does that. The fact it uses the word nomination does not strap onto it a process that isn't specified in state law, and actually, I think, interferes with the idea of by motion practice electing a president and vice president. So I don't think there's any exposure to litigation that would be successful in finding that these actions, either of these actions, were not validly taken. And, you know, if I missed something I should have that's confusing, that's the approach I took in looking at the agenda. I still don't see a legal problem with proceeding with a motion practice on the vice president, whether I
Thank you.
would.
So I'll make it again. I'll make it to nominate
Mr.
Gary
Chairman,
as vice
point
president.
of order.
Yes,
Yes. Could we please finish the discussion? It is hard.
We were.
It is hard for us to hear our attorney. I do have questions for our attorney. I think the public needs to hear these questions. And
we're not gonna cut anybody off, so.
I appreciate,
your question.
thank you very much, Mr. President. I appreciate that. Mr. Markman, please look at page 4 of our agenda. Page 4 of 69.
And,
Are you looking at that?
and,
Okay, so it says election of board officers, president and vice president. It separates the nominations as you correctly stated. And then on each side, we, according to this, we could have, I nominated George. If somebody else wanted to nominate someone else and could get a second, they should have been able to. But we all voted for George. Nobody made another nomination. Now there's nomination for vice president. There's 2 names. If one of us here could get a nomination with a second and the other one could get a nomination with a second, there would be a vote, and there would be, you know, there's 7 of us voting, so one would win and one would lose. And that is the course I've taken many times with other boards that I've served on. And that is what is on page 4. Now, if page 4 is in error, and maybe you're saying it is, you had reviewed it, what is our remedy at this point?
I don't think you need a remedy, Rob. I'll say this one more time. And I don't know what to do but to give you my advice. The Brown Act controls the process. The Brown Act can't be employed here because the word nomination is used to set aside the election of any one of you to vice president because the word nomination appears on page 4. I don't believe that. If I did, I would tell you, oops, put it over. That's easy enough, but I don't believe that, and I don't want to tell you something I don't believe.
No,
So that's us. And, you know, I don't think there's any process by which, if you have a motion and then somebody else's name is thrown in, you know, it's interesting for me to see how you would process that as you go through the votes. And also, if you use motion practice, the end result is just as more easy to obtain. Somebody gets nominated for vice president. If 4 board members support somebody else or some other people, then that person will not win. And then you go on to another motion and nominate somebody else. But if 4 people want somebody nominated, the same 4 people, eventually you'll get to the right name without having 2 or 3 names in play at the same time. So I don't think there's anything. It's too bad that obviously we will see that error doesn't occur again, unless the board wants to adopt a nomination process, which you can do if you would like us to draft one that has the rest of the process spelled out. So that I can't say any more than that to advise the board. The board will, George is the ultimate arbiter. He's the chair. the board can go ahead, but my view is the best course of action, safest and most legal.
Correct, even though we're not unanimous on that, acceptance of the legal counsel's, recommendation. So I think at this point, we would ask for, a second, and I'll, second Director Gary Van Dam. And so if there's any further discussion, and if Gary is not
Mr.
elected.
Chairman, I did have discussion on that.
Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gary is a friend of mine. I've worked with him on several boards. He has been a very good public servant on boards that I've served with. I sincerely believe that our agency has some crucial issues going to face us in the next couple of years. I think there's other members on this board more qualified than Gary. I've had this conversation with Gary personally because I think honesty is the best policy. And it's a hard conversation to have with a friend. And Gary had a conversation with me. I think that leadership on this board is critical. And George, you have provided incredible leadership over the many years that you have served on this board, and I thank you.
thank you.
And I also say that I would not be on this board without you, George, or without you, Keith, out there in the internet world. And that I appreciate the support you have given me over the years. So without going any further, that's all I do have to say. I think that this, for the public that's here and what the public has heard, it seems that this decision was made long ago, or maybe not too long ago. And obviously you're going to do what you want to do. And I think at this point, that's all I have to say. And it is an honor to serve with you, George, and all of you on this board. And I'll continue to do my best to provide whatever leadership I can.
And likewise, man.
I know that,
You're
George.
appreciated, man.
Thank you.
Call for the question.
I'd like to make one comment.
Go ahead.
And I just want to thank Rob for, noticing that. And, I told him, I said, I'll be the first one to come to him. So, I asked for advice.
You did, and
I don't have to do it all on my own, Rob.
no, I really appreciate the conversation we had together. And Gary, like I said, we've been friends a long time, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Question?
questions to call for?
Roll call.
Okay, so the nomination on the table is for Gary Van Dam for vice president. The first was from Frank Donato, second by George Lane. So this is the roll call for that. Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
No.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
No.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Okay, motion, carried, and we appreciate the discussion. And one thing I would like to say, this board, we agree upon 95% of the things, and occasionally there's something we don't agree upon, but once it's over, we forget about it and we go on, and we're a very effective board. And I think, I might be prejudiced, but all of the boards in the Antelope Valley, and even the ones I've been associated or aware of, elsewhere, I think we're one of the best, boards there is, and we've provided a heck of a lot at a reasonable cost. And, we all have water, and we're much cheaper water rates than most others in Southern California. So let's just continue to do a good job, and I appreciate every director here. I respect, and I can learn a lot from. We all have different expertises, and it's really valuable to the board. And we're lucky we have the management, we have, and especially Holly, she keeps us all out of trouble. Might make mistakes, and she lets me know a lot of very fast right there. Okay, so
Mr. President, I know Drew wants to say
Yeah,
something.
Drew.
Oh, I just wanted to kind of echo those sentiments. And I don't really like the process that we use, but I know everyone here in the district is an incredible leader, including Gary. I'm honored to serve on this board as well as the Fair Board and others over the years. So I know he's going to make a great leader. And, let's say that about all of you here in the district.
Thank you.
And Mr. President, I'd like to congratulate Gary on his election and echo your sentiments. And I think we have worked cohesively as a board, and we are certainly one of the best boards in this valley, but we have many, many really great boards in this valley. So we're fortunate for all that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank all the directors and the public out there for standing behind me. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. Now, like maybe about 4 directors are gonna be installed right here, and our board secretary Holly Hughes is gonna do the work for us right then.
Okay, can I have directors George Lane, Gary Van Dam, Audrey Miller, and Drew Mercy please rise? And we'll do the oath of office in unison. Everybody has, we're gonna get a photo up, yeah. Just stand up there and swear in, and 2 of you can face the flag that way, and George and Audrey can face the flag that way, so we can get some photos. Read it.
Holly, why don't you take them down there so that it's in the background rather than mess it up here?
Okay. Yeah, you can come down. No. Okay. Okay.
You want them down here?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it would be good to swear. So repeat with me. I, George Lane, Audrey Miller, Gary Van Dam, Drew Mercy, during such time as I hold the above office, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and to the Constitution of the State of California, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Okay. Thank you very much for your service. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you much, Molly. And then at this point, we'll take about a 10-minute break.
Mr. President,
Yeah,
I just want to thank my mom for being here. She's the one who taught me about giving back to the community. And,
Hey, Drew, have your mom stand up. She.
I would like to thank my friends and guests as well that are here to support.
And also my family, Brandon, Brooke, Michelle, Lindsay.
My family, my wife. My grandson here, some. What's here again? Okay. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. And we're gonna take a 10-minute break and help yourself have refreshments, and we'll get started in about 10 minutes or so. Good job. Oh, Gary, congratulations. You too. I know you guys are. Thank you very much. Even if we were split and do we had full vote. order would be, voluntary public roll call. If there's anybody listening in, we'd like to hear from you. If you'd like to announce your name.
Oh, it was a joy listening to you, and this is Jack Cephas, and White Fence 3. Nice to be here. Interesting.
Hey, Jack, thank you much, and always appreciate you.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, was that
Yes.
okay?
Yeah, you did beautiful.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I'm proud of you, and the book. I know most
Some
of
of our
them.
meetings are pretty boring, so a little more activity here. Hey, thank you, Jack. Anyone else?
John, you can stay.
Hey, John,
How you
wish you
doing?
guys were here. It's nice refreshment.
Vincent Dino, Palmdale Water District.
Hey, Vince.
Ben Stewart, Roseland Community Service District.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6, public comments. Anybody would like to address the board that an item is not on the agenda? Now's the time to do so. Okay, item number 7, adoption of an agenda, 7A1.
Mr. President, I will, move to adopt the agenda 7A1.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. If there's no further discussion or comments, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Karas.
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato, George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. We'll move on to, new business, item number 8, and we're gonna turn that over to Matt.
All right, thank you, President Lane. Good evening, board. So item 8A1 is an informational item only, and we have David Shea, who is with HDL Horn and Cone. As you know, David and his firm for a number of years have provided the agency an overview of our tax revenue that we collect, both for the county taxes as well as the state water project tax. So Dave is on the phone this evening to go through a brief presentation of what we're seeing with property values within the agency and what the trends are. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dave Shea.
I might say, it's usually a pretty interesting presentation, so if you're thinking about leaving, you might want to please listen to this presentation. Okay.
All right, take it away, Dave. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Mr. President, members of the board, as Matt mentioned, our company provides property tax data.
Mr. Shea, sorry to interrupt you. Could you speak up a little bit louder?
Certainly.
I know.
Our company provides property tax data services for the district as well as cities and other special districts statewide. And most of what we do is trying to give you an idea of what the values are doing from year to year so that your staff can properly budget their revenues. The district, as you know, overlies areas in LA County, Kern County, as well as a small amount of territory in Ventura County. And so our reports are broken down to cover the portions of the district in LA and Kern County. We don't really address the area in Ventura County since none of the values there are taxable. So there's really no point in reviewing those. The first table that you see on your screen is an overview of the values within Los Angeles County. You'll see there in the top line that the value within the district in LA County is now at $35.4 million. $35.4 billion, and that's up 5.59% from the 23-24 values of $33.6 billion. That's solid growth. The growth that you'll see down below in the box labeled value change by land use category is made up in LA County primarily of growth within residential values. These are due primarily to sales and some new construction. The growth from the prior year in residential was about $1.3 billion and accounted for about 70% of the total value added for this year in LA County. The second largest source of value growth was on the unsecured tax roll, where you added $318.6 million, which was about 17% of the total value added for the roll. Now, the unsecured value in LA County, the primary growth driver was some growth in the aerospace community, as well as a few very valuable airplanes. So those added substantially to your growth. There was solid growth in all the land use categories, with the exception of some small value reductions as cross-reference roll values, which are leased properties and recreational properties. If you look in the box that's labeled revenue summary, here we're estimating the revenue that the district will receive from the 1% tax rate within the three accounts that you have in LA County. These three accounts together total a share of about 1.94% of the tax rate, of the 1% tax rate within LA County. And we estimate that those will generate about $3.9 million in revenue to the district. Now, those revenues are based upon current year values only. You'll receive, in addition to that, sorry, was there a question?
No.
Nope, go ahead.
In addition to that 3.9 million, you'll also receive some supplemental revenue or revenues from supplemental assessments, as well as some prior year collection revenues. They tend to be relatively small, as well as some amount of RPTTF revenues from the Palmdale and Lancaster redevelopment project areas, where you'll receive some residual revenue as well as some pass-through revenue. Those are not included within that $3.9 million. Now, below that, you'll see the amounts that we're estimating as revenue to the district from your state water contract override tax rate. We're estimating that at $24.9 million. And again, that's not including some additional revenues that you might receive for supplemental assessments and prior year collections. You won't receive any additional state water contract revenues from the redevelopment project areas in LA County, because you're already receiving 100% of those revenues directly from the county outside of the RPTTF process. Holly, could we see the next slide, please? This is a little more detailed look at the value growth by land use. In LA County, and if you look at the middle column there, 24-25 net taxable value, residential properties make up about 70% of all the value within the district in LA County. So it's by far your largest land use category. And the value change within that one category was 5.7%. So it was very solid growth from last year to this year. The second largest value gain was on the unsecured roll. The unsecured roll is about $2.1 billion for this year. That's 6.1% of the total value within the district in LA County. And the growth there was 17.3%. And as I said, the biggest source of growth on the unsecured roll in LA County was aerospace growth within Lockheed and Northrop within Palmdale. We also saw pretty solid growth on vacant land, as well as commercial and industrial properties that added substantial value to the roll for this year. Holly, could I see the next slide, please? Now, this is the property tax review for the portion of the districts that's in Kern County. The value within Kern County, is now $10.7 billion. That's up from $9.8 billion last year. And if we look at the value change by land use category box, you'll see a little different picture in Kern County than in LA County. Residential property values are not as large a component of the values within Kern County, but they added $185 million to the roll for this year, which was about 20% of all the value added. The biggest value added within Kern County was in the miscellaneous land use category, and that added $428 million to the roll this year. That was a 28% increase over the prior year, so there was a lot of growth there, and it accounted for about 46.6% of all the growth in the district's Kern County area. The vast majority of that growth was from U.S. Borax, mining operations that they have. They added substantial value in the fixture and improvement value within their facilities. So their values have tended to fluctuate a little bit from year to year. They've been down a little the last couple of years, but have added substantial value for this year. The unsecured values within Kern County also grew substantially at $150.7 million. And that was mainly driven by new value among solar and wind farm facilities that are on leased property within the Kern County area. The revenue summary up above that, we're estimating the district's 1% revenue at $1.5 million. The two accounts that you see there total about 1.4% of the 1% tax rate revenue within that portion of Kern County. And again, this $1.5 million is just based upon the revenue you'd receive from current year secured, unsecured, and Hawks revenue, but doesn't include any estimate of prior year collections or supplemental assessment revenue. The revenue that the district receives from its state water contract debt rate in Kern County is pretty substantial at $13.3 million. That's a combination of both the debt rate applied to the regular property values within the district, as well as a pretty substantial amount of revenue from unitary revenue that's the debt rate applied to the utility values within the district's area of Kern County. So between those two, you have a pretty substantial amount of revenue. Next slide, please. This again is a little more detailed look at the value changes. As you can see, miscellaneous land use category is about 18% of the total value within the district's area in Kern County, but it accounted for $428 million of value added for this year, which was 28.2% of the change. Residential property values in Kern County are quite a bit less than the amounts in LA County. It only accounts for about 24.7% of all the value within the district. But that did add pretty substantially in value at 7.5%. It added $185.6 million. The unsecured values are pretty substantially, a pretty substantial part of your total value in Kern County. They make up 42% of the value. And a lot of that are leaseholds and solar energy and wind energy facilities that are located on leased property within the district's territory in Kern. Can I see the next slide, please? This is the Los Angeles portion of the district's revenue summary. This is a little, slightly more detailed look at the 1% revenue and the unitary revenue. The 1% revenue is made up of $3.8 million. This is the 1% revenue from the two accounts within LA County. you get about $80,000 in unitary revenue within LA County for a total of 3.9 million. And again, that doesn't include supplemental assessments, prior year collections. The county will keep about $37,000 for administration of the property tax process in LA County. And the total amount of state water contract revenue is about $24.9 million for this year. Next slide, please. In Kern County, the accounts are handled slightly differently. You see on the upper section, just the general fund revenue. This is the revenue from the 1% tax rate and regular unitary revenue. The 1% tax revenue is about 1.4 million, with another 97,000 in unitary revenue for a total of 1.5. The revenue you see down below is a combination of the unitary revenue. This is the state water contract debt rate applied to utility values within the district's territory. By utility, I'm talking about the state assessed rights of way and facilities for electrical, gas, water, railroad facilities within the district's territory. Those override revenues are $5.7 million, and then there's $7.5 million of state water contract debt service revenue that's received from the regular property tax values, the non-unitary property tax values. And those total about $13.3 million. Next slide, please. As we start to assist your staff in developing their budget for next year, one of the key components that we look at is the sales, the amount of sales that occur and the value that's added as a result of those sales. In this table, if we look in the upper right-hand section of the table, we see the values being added from 4,063 sales that have occurred in 2024, and we're expecting $633.9 million to be added to the 25-26 roll. And let me just verify. Yeah, this is for LA County. And you'll see also in the second to the right column that the value being added as a result of these sales is 70% over and above the value that was enrolled for these properties in 23-24. The $633.9 million that will be added to the 25-26 roll is, pretty close to what we saw added to this year's rolls from the sales in 2023 at $761 million. That's the line just below. But, it's less than what we saw added to the 23-24 roll and substantially less than what we saw added in the 22-23 roll at $1.3 billion. And that's a pattern that we're seeing pretty much statewide. Value growth from sales, depending on where we are, peaked in either 2022 or 2021. And we typically saw a little fall off in 2023 with sometimes a little fall off, sometimes about even for 2024. You'll also note over on the left-hand column that the sales values that we have for 2024 are through September. We will be updating this to include sales through the end of the year before we send our budget estimates over to your staff. Can we see the next slide, please? Now, this, and obviously the numbers are going to be a little smaller. The amount of sales or the number of sales that we've seen through September in Kern County are 1,993, and the value being added as a result of those sales is $136.6 million. That's a little bit lower than what we saw that was added for for the current year, 24-25, at 192 million. But with 3 months left to go, we should probably see sales that will bring that number up somewhere closer to the $190 million that we saw last year. If you look at those lines below that, you can see that the sales that occurred in the prior 2 years were about 231 million and 249 million respectively. And so we see that pattern of a little bit of a drop off in value added as a result of sales. And as a result, we'll probably expect growth to be a little less robust for 25-26 in both LA County and Kern County, but still pretty substantial growth relative to what we've seen in prior years. Next slide, please. One of the issues that was brought up at our presentation last year was, and I apologize for not remembering which board member it was, but one of the board members seemed to remember that there was a tax sharing agreement that the district had entered into with California City, actually the California City redevelopment area. I hadn't had any success finding that after contacting Kern County as well as the California City successor agency and a couple of consultants that worked on the 2008 bond issue there. But Teresa was able to find this agreement finally, and in looking at it, we've got a couple of things going on. The agreement originally that was done in, I believe it was 1988, allowed that the district wouldn't receive any pass-through for 10 years. And at the end of that 10 years, the unpaid or deferred pass-throughs would be repaid, and then they would receive, the district would receive 100% of its state water contract revenue and 100% of its 1% revenue thereafter. I'm not sure exactly what happened prior to dissolution. I'm not sure if any of those revenues were received or if some were and some weren't. It's a little unclear. But I do know that when they did the 2008 bond issue, there was a notation in the bond issue that those payments were not being made. And so I'm assuming that there was some lack of payment prior to dissolution as well as since dissolution. What it looks like is that this agreement wasn't provided to the county when they took over the calculation of pass-throughs after dissolution of redevelopment areas. So no payments have been made since 2012. Beginning in 2015, however, the state law changed in such a way that from that point forward, the district's been receiving its full state water contract revenues generated by the incremental tax, incremental value within the California City project area. So you've been made whole on your state water contract revenues for about the last 9 years, but not on the 1% revenues, which are what you're seeing here highlighted. It's about $27,000 or $28,000 per year, because the district share is relatively small. What we're intending to do there is to bring this to the attention of Kern County's Auditor Controller's Office and work through making sure that those amounts are paid going forward at least, and then finding a way if we can get some repayment to the district for some prior years. There are some statutes that may limit the amount that we can recover for unpaid prior years, but we'll work through that process in conjunction with your staff, over the next couple of months and see what progress we can make in getting this rectified.
To my knowledge, that was a auto testing facility west of California City, and probably Director Dias and Director Donato would maybe have more information. But anyway, they were trying to attract that auto testing facility, and we tried to cooperate in that.
With that, that was all the presentation I had to make. I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of the board members may have.
Could you just, talk a little bit about the redevelopment agencies in the city of Lancaster, in the city of Palmdale? It's been a number of years, and how many years they have to go, or if some have already matured?
Yeah, both of those project areas or successor agencies have been, fairly successful. They've gathered quite a bit of value over the years. It appears that all of the property taxes that are owed to the district have been paid. I did take a look at the values that were paid over these last several years, and did find that they appeared to be consistent with the agreements and the statutory payments that were required. As with what I mentioned in California City, the revenue that the district generates by their state water contract rate was being passed through in most cases, most of the project areas, due to the agreements prior to 2015, and after 2015, all of the state water contract revenues have been passed through to the district directly by the county as a result of the change in the statute back in 2015.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the board? No, but a good presentation.
All right, thank you, Dave. Good job.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you much.
All right.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the next item, item number 9, consent calendar. We have 3 items. We have the minutes of December 23rd and 2 resolutions for annexation. If the board would review those, and if there's any questions, if not, a motion would be in order. We have
Mr. President, I'll second that motion.
Yeah, we have a motion by Director Mercy and Director Paris, second by Director Paris. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yeah.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you. And we move on to item number 10, Finance Committee. Director Donato is chairman of that committee, and
Okay, thank you, Chairman. We finance committee met last week on the 9th. We had a nice meeting. So I'll discuss the board 10A1, consider the possible action to accept and file a check registry list for the period of December 12th through January 1st of 2025. And our general manager will do us an overview.
All right, thank you, Director Donato. Good evening, board. So on page 33 is the beginning of our checklist. I'll hit the highlights, but as Director Donato mentioned, we went through this in detail with the Finance Committee last week. So item number 1 on the checklist is our monthly payment to Department of Water Resources. It's just over $661,000. And this is the variable invoice for the month of November for moving roughly 3,500 acre feet through the state water project to the valley. Most of that water was directly used at our treatment facilities as we stopped banking around that time. On the third page, or page 35 of your packet, item 43 is a progress payment for Cal Sierra Construction. There's a contractor working on the Leona Valley Tank Rehab Project, which is going well. That's payment of $135,375. Item 47 is our annual payment to the Nickel family for the non-state water project water supply under that water supply agreement. It's about $1.67 million. And again, that's an annual payment. Item 75 and 76 on page 37 are both payments to the State Water Resource Control Board. You can see there's two separate payments. One is for our LA County water system, and the other is for our Kern County water system. These are annual payments to the State Water Resource Control Board associated with our operating permit to operate all the facilities located in each of the counties. So the first one in LA County is just under $38,000, and the second one to Kern County, or for Kern County, is just under $15,000. And then skipping ahead to page 39, this is a payment associated with the High Desert Water Bank project. It's a payment for $1.63 million to Bakersfield Well and Pump. And it's a progress payment for the well drilling package number 3. If you recall, that's includes 8 new recovery wells, and this is a progress payment for that contract.
That was percentage of portion of what we
Approved.
contract, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's roughly a $10 million contract in total, and this is a progress payment within that contract. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Okay, is there any further questions or comments from the board? Motion by Director Donato.
I'll second. Director Miller second.
Director Miller, we have a second. Okay, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris.
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried.
Okay, that brings us to item 10A2, consider possible action to approve purchase orders with Sierra Construction and Excavation Inc. for the emergency leak repair, making no valuable heater, not to exceed $26,352.84, and our operator, and you have to be here tonight, and John will go over it.
Thank you, Director Donato. Good evening. Okay, so the feeder, it's a 12-inch ductile iron pipeline that feeds the Leona Valley customers. It runs on the east side of Goaty Hill Road, just about a quarter mile south of the aqueduct. We noticed a leak, and you can see where the star is. That's where the leak was. Holly, if you want to go to the next slide. Okay, so it's hard to tell from this picture, but on one side of the pipeline, the hillside slopes off. On the other side, you have a lane of traffic. So a little bit treacherous area to work on. We called in or Sierra Construction, who's done a lot of emergency work for Avek, and they exposed what the leak was. Holly, next slide. There you go. Okay, it's hard to zoom in on that, but you have a 12-inch ductile iron feeder, and then coming off the top of it at different areas, you have a 2-inch copper line. That copper line, oh, that's good. That goes to an air release valve. And when they put the copper line in, they wrap it with 10 mil tape, and it's pretty well protected. But this probably, when they compact it, you see a lot of rocks around there. You're supposed to put sand, and then you put soil on top of it. They probably had a rock right on top of that piece of copper. And when they compacted it, kind of pressed into the copper, and that thinned it out a little bit. And, 40 plus years later, it started leaking. So the pressure there, believe it or not, is close to 300 PSI. So that leak was getting progressively worse and probably would have eroded the hillside if we would have let it go too much longer. So Sierra did a really good job. They were on site immediately, exposed it, they replaced it. Holly, next slide, please. One more. Next one. I don't know. The unlucky guy that was in the hole, I'll tell you that. Okay, so there's the new copper pipe wrapped in 10 mil tape. And they put sand, and then they put native soil on top of it. And next slide, Holly. Thanks. There's the air release valve back in place, the concrete ring back in place, and then of course the manhole cover was put on afterwards. So long story short, you know, you're probably getting tired of me coming to you and telling you about these leaks we're having, but it's just a fact of life. You know, things get older and things don't work as well as they did, and we're having a few leaks here and there. So, but we do monitor our feeders constantly, so we try to catch things very early before they get too bad. So Sierra Construction did a time and materials invoice. Joe Roberts and Justin reviewed it, and everything is checked out. And the total repair was $26,352.84. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
John, how much time did that actually take from the discovery to replacement?
I would say we discovered it, and they had to get encroachment permits from the county and the city of Palmdale, because they had to close the lane of traffic on Goatee Hill Road, which is not easy to do. It took about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get those encroachment permits, and we were out there daily monitoring it. And it
was leaking in the whole.
Oh, it was leaking. Yeah. We were praying it didn't get worse. They got the permits, and if they would have done the work without the permits and there was an accident, there would have been a big problem. So we had to do it the right way. But I would say within 3 weeks of discovery, it was repaired. So that was pretty good.
Good job.
Oh, well, we have a good team for sure. Any other questions?
Should those permits have came sooner?
Well, dealing with City of Palmdale is I don't mean to offend anybody, but it's not an easy process. And even an emergency repair, George, believe it or not, takes a little while. So,
John, City of Lancaster would have agreed with you in the past, but they're getting along really well now.
well, when my brother was there, it would have happened just like that. Okay. So.
On an emergency situation, when they're not accessible, City of Palmdale, would you think go fix it? Yeah.
Oh, emergency, all bets are off. We're in there fixing it. We're not asking permission. We'll ask forgiveness. Right.
Move on board order A2.
Second, this is Keith.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Donato, second by Director Dias. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Yeah, thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, we're gonna
Thanks,
move on to next item, B, High Desert Water Bank. And that'll be Director Donato as chairman of that committee.
Okay, there's two items here. One will be for information only, the other one will be for order. And first one is 10E1. Justin, engineer house engineer manager will discuss the overview of the High Desert Water Bank.
All right. Thank you, Director Donato, and good evening, President Lane, members of the board. A fairly brief monthly update report here. We'll jump right in. So got a recharge status summary here. This will cover the entire calendar year 2024. We are not recharging into 2025 at the High Desert Water Bank per Metropolitan's request. We'll wait until the state water project allocation hopefully increases a little bit more than it is, and then we'll get it back online. But for now, we're off. But we were able to recharge about 5,700 acre feet in the month of December, which brought us to a grand total of 38,217 acre feet delivered in 2024. If you recall, we started banking back in about the middle of May this year, and we were still working in some of the basins, so we were a little bit limited as they wrapped up the construction on that project. But we're more than halfway to the single year goal, even with those restrictions. So we did pretty well out there. Deliveries prior to 2024 for Metropolitan were 12,003 acre feet. So adding to that, the 38,000 delivered in 2024, they have a gross total stored of 50,220 acre feet in the bank. Of course, there's a one-time 10% leave behind for that water. So the recoverable balance of that would be 45,042 acre feet. As you know, Avek did not utilize the project in 2024 because Metropolitan was taking full advantage of their first priority rights to use the facility. So we did not deliver any water in 2024, and the balance there was delivered in prior years.
Question.
Yes.
the net was taking, didn't want to, recharge. And I know water spike, but is there any chance of, San Luis spillover, we lose our carryover water?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was talks about that. Obviously, our first choice would be to put some of that water in the West Side Water Bank where we have recovery facilities available. Metropolitan has confirmed there's available capacity at High Desert Water Bank. So if we did need an extra place to store water in a spill event, we would have that available to us as well.
Don't we also have, island over there?
Upper Amargosa, yeah, we have that. Of course, the East Side Water Bank. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jumping forward to budget, nothing new in this slide other than the payout to date column. But this summarizes various, kind of a high level look at the budget for the project. No new contracts have been issued since the last time this slide was presented. So the approved contracts here remains at about 104 million. Payout to date has been updated in accordance with the payments that we've approved, but the available budget remains the same for the project. So looking good there, but we've got a deeper dive into some of those contracts here on this slide, which summarizes the active contracts that we've entered into on the project. And I pay close attention to the percentage of the contract paid here versus the percentage of work completed. So in all cases on this slide, you can see we're doing very well. We have an action item after this presentation on the notice of completion for the recharge basins project. So you'll see that in those areas relating to that, the engineering support for that, as well as the construction management, and then we have the construction. So in all of those items, those are 100%. You can see the payouts for the engineering services are under 100%, 83% for the engineering fields or engineering support, and 82% for the construction management. So those, there will be a little bit of extra invoices that trickle in as they do some of the closeout work that we ask them to do. But we're in really good shape as far as that goes. And then of course, for the construction contract, we've got 100% complete, but only 97% paid as we withhold some retention from those projects until the notice of completion gets filed. So looking very good on that. Similarly for the drilling package project, about 49% completed, 46% paid out. And the engineering services for those are also tracking under budget in accordance with where we're at with the construction for those projects. So all good there. Give another second to look at that table if anybody has any questions.
10B2, there'll be no retention. You recommend all retention be dispersed?
Right now, tonight's action is just to file the notice of completion. And then we have a waiting period before we can release any retention from that project.
That's not what it says.
Let me see where's my agenda here.
Notice of completion and release of retention.
Right. Yeah, the release of retention would be triggered after a waiting period, after filing of the notice of completion as part of our contract language.
So you want me to take the motion, to also the filing of just the notice of completion?
Yeah, that's all that's necessary. The releasing of the retention is triggered after a waiting period, yeah. But, well, if you'd we still have to finish the monthly report and then we'll jump into that action item if that's okay. This summarizes the capital program account. We've got a total balance in there now of about 3.7 million. Metropolitan has an invoice due here in a couple of days for about 1.6. Everything's looking good as far as cash flow in and out of that account. Really the only active construction project right now is the drilling package number 3 that Matt just mentioned. We had a progress payment for Bakersfield Well and Pump. This table summarizes where they're at. So you can see that really only the last 3 wells have any active work going on. They're in pump development on one, installing gravel pack on the other, and then beginning the reaming process on the final well out at that site. So making good progress. They're supposed to be completed in May. Seems like they're a little bit ahead of schedule on that. And no other updates on the project. Happy to answer any questions on the monthly report, or we can move into the action item.
If I may, if we can go back to the picture of the water bank, for the public that's here tonight. This is the High Desert Water Bank that we're managing for Metropolitan Water. And that's just under 2 square miles of work that's being done north of the aqueduct. And it's quite the thing to see in person. And it's very exciting to be part of this project.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is where the antelope roam. For those of you who saw the picture.
That's the truth.
That's true, yeah.
Ducks are out there, yeah, the antelope. Thank
That's
you.
true. Yeah, well stated. Thank you. All right, if there's no other questions, we're ready to move on to our action item, which is 10.
Okay, board order for 10B2. There's no further questions or comments would be in order.
Okay, I'll move again. 10B2.
I'm gonna, Director Donato.
Consider possible action on only filing the notice of completion.
Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary?
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Frank Donato,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay, that brings us to item number C. And Matt, I think we'll defer that to you. The water, well, you want to speak on that, Water Master?
Actually, I will turn that over to Matt and let him lead us
Okay.
through that, okay?
Okay,
But
very
thank you
well.
for the opportunity.
Very well.
All right. Thank you, President Lane, Director Paris. So including your board packet on page 65 is a staff report that Angel put together, summarizing or highlighting some of the action items that will be considered by the Water Master on Wednesday, January 22nd. So our timing's a little mixed up this month because typically we have had the advisory committee meeting and we're able to report tonight on the outcome of the advisory committee. But the advisory committee is not meeting until tomorrow. So things could change between now and the Water Master meeting, but we'll hit the highlights. So one item that is on the agenda is a public hearing and then followed by action item to approve the 2025 application fee schedule. This was reviewed in detail at the last meeting, just as information. The Water Master engineer, as you know, they collect a fee for reviewing various applications being considered by the Water Master. They are increasing their fees. Another component of the fee schedule is the admin staff's portion of the fee. So happy to report, as Avek being the administrator, we are not recommending any increases to our portion of the fees. So it's only the Water Master engineer's portion.
What,
So-
Matt, what's that increase?
So it, Director Van Dam, it varies based on the application.
Okay.
Angel, do you want to hit the highlights of where the increases are, or are you not prepared for that? Okay. So it does vary.
Okay, is it acre foot amounts that so many
Yeah,
calculated on the acre?
it varies based on the type of application. The biggest increase was or is being recommended to the transfers and new production.
Okay.
Were you going to say something, Director Ferris?
Just to agree with you, man.
Oh, okay. Let's see, moving on, if there's no other questions on that. Discussion and direction on admin services for the AV Water Master. So at the last meeting in closed session, the Water Master Board met and they did not reach a consensus on a 5-0 vote.
And Matt, make sure what you're reporting is what we reported out to the public. So
Exactly.
obviously what happens in closed session can't be
Yeah.
discussed other than what's reported out to the public.
Yep. Good reminder. So the only thing reported out was that the board met in closed session and did not reach a consensus on either of the two firms that submitted proposals for admin. So just a way of reminder, Watermaster went out with an RFP. We received two proposals, one from Provost and Pritchard, the other one from Regional Government Services. They're very close in fee, but after a lot of discussion amongst the various parties to the judgment and the advisory committee.
Possible, and I can't, like you, say enough about the AVAC staff, you know, Angel and Holly and Pam, although Palmdale Stormers, and Patty and Peter and Matt to begin with. They do an incredible job.
They do.
And as chair of the Watermaster Board, 2023 was not pleasant for me either.
Right.
So,
So keep your boxing gloves on at that next meeting and fight for us.
but I would like to get consensus from our board of what approach they want to take if we could, Mr. President.
That's a tough question.
Out of these board, yeah, I don't mean.
Matt, I think we all have our preference right there, but Matt, you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, so.
You know, Julie, you know, we all know that we all appreciate the work you've done, you and Galen. And if you didn't do it, I don't know who would, but you folks have done a tremendous job.
So on the Watermaster agenda, the item is titled Discussion and Direction on Admin Services. You know, I went through kind of what admin staff, like Peter put this slide together, or these talking points. And this is what Peter thinks, you know, the four options are for the Watermaster. Obviously, there could be others. But speaking as GM of AVAC, my hope is that we can just put this to bed and move on. Staff is kind of tired of being the ping pong, you know, we're going out with an RFP, no, we're staying with AVAC. We're going out with an RFP, staying with AVAC. So if AVAC staff is supportive of if the board chooses to continue providing the service for the next 3-5 years, whatever it may be. And we're happy to do that and we'll do a good job, but we need to make a decision. My hope is, and preference at this point, is just to continue under the existing MOU. We have a good MOU in place. It covers both parties. There's a cancellation clause if something comes up where we need to get out of it, or Watermaster decides that AVAC should not do it anymore. And there's a mechanism in there that details the scope of work and a way for AVAC to recoup its costs. So that's my preference.
Rob,
Yep.
you and your committee, what do you recommend?
Well, I haven't met with the committee yet, but they're all here. So my recommendation is exactly what Matt's recommendation is. But I did forget to thank Teresa for all the work she's doing on Watermaster. It's really increased her workload, and I didn't mean to leave you out. But with that said, I think the board needs to consider, if we're going to continue, we need to bring this to the personnel committee and supplement some of our staff. I know Teresa's workload has gone up significantly. I know Angel's workload has. Others are picking up things. So I think I agree with Matt that we continue with our contract and that we send this to the personnel committee to talk about what staff needs to be supplemented, how we can do that, and what it will cost us.
Right now, you've got that meeting next week. So,
I do.
Yeah.
I just like to plant seeds, George, you know that.
Okay. But as far, I don't know if we need a motion, but does anybody in the board not agree with that approach?
Rob is correct. I would like to see, I hear 3-5 years, I think we should, continue on for one more year. Do, AVAC doing it. And within that, we come up with the personnel system he's talking about, because it's got to become That's a first.
Hey, Frank, I'm sorry to tell you it was soft during our
Okay.
earlier discussion, so it worked out for me.
Anyway, I agree with you, I think, but I think 1 year, and continue on for 1 year. And I believe that the personnel needs to work with our general manager and staff to come up with a more responsible, reliable, program to go beyond, to go to the 3-year situation. So we don't have to, like you said, go out to bid all the time. But it's gonna take some additional personnel. You will know that, you know, what we're gonna need to make this thing work. I don't understand what the conflicts are. Like I said, I asked a question, nobody's come back with a letter to AVAC or anything that says that we are causing any issues with anything. So it's a lot of talk. So I would, have management and your committee, work on that, come up. But in the meantime, let's get, like you said, let's go 1 year out right now, and then we'll have, an answer by the end of the year.
No, but is 1 year enough?
Well, here's the problem with whatever we decide. Any other than one, it will take action by the Water Master Board to do, let's say, the fourth option for us to negotiate a new MOU. So, and from everything I see, I don't think we're going to get 5 votes. And if we don't get 5 votes, then all we can do is continue with the contract we have in place, which is number 1. I'm hoping we can work on a consensus and move past the issue, but right now at the next meeting and in the foreseeable future, I don't see that.
Because it's a 5-vote, you have to get unanimous, is that correct?
Yeah, that's always the case on the Water Master Board. That's why it's been so fun to be the chair of that board.
So are you almost there, Rob? Or are you down 1 vote, or where are you at?
I can't disclose closed session anything, but I think it's been very obvious in open sessions where the issue lies.
Unless we hear different from the board, I think there's a consensus that we're gonna do it at least a year. If not, we'll have to continue, there's no choice.
Yeah, I think where we're at right now is unless this board decides not to do it, which we could, because in our agreement, I think we have a 30, 60, 90 day.
That's correct.
So we could choose as a board not to do it, but then I think the Kyles would be yelling at us and bringing everybody they know. So I don't think that.
Year to year, would that be more sellable to the people that are questioning it?
Maybe, and certainly that is part of the discussion I can have. I hope we get over this because everybody on that board, they're smart people, they're publicly minded. I think we will get a consensus eventually. I hope we will. We work on it each meeting. But I can't tell this board that we can't say we want 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 15 years until we get 5 votes. We work under our contract we have now.
That's why I suggest 1 year, so show the doubters, the doubter or whatever, that this is working, and then have them.
I think we'll go for I think every meeting from now on, I am going to try to reach consensus to bring this to bed.
Thank you, Rob.
Do you have enough from the board direction?
Yeah, the direction has been great. Thanks.
Do we all agree with that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Can I sort of ask a
Yes,
question
no.
here? So what I'm hearing is if we stay with the MOU, you don't have to take action at the water master meeting.
Well, they're going to bring it up. I'm going to tell them what the consensus of our board is. They might take another vote, but it's going to take 5-0 to change anything. And whenever you tell me to do something and the consensus is, my vote would count. So nothing will ever change until this board decides, I think, where somebody takes it to court, which I think is unlikely with how things are right now.
So being on the Personnel Committee and the Water Master Committee, I would like to see that discussion in personnel on, and stay with the MOU for right now until we can.
Yeah,
Yeah, how we.
I would agree with that, Audrey. I think we need to have a discussion at least about supplementing staff and bring it back to the board and have a discussion on that. So I agree 100%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Matt, do we need a board order in
No,
this?
it sounds like we have a consensus.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay, do you have any further?
Yeah, I've got one more quick item.
Okay.
Thank you. Good discussion. Actually, 2 more slides. So also on the agenda for the Water Master, there's 2 new production applications. Both are very small quantities of water. The first one's a single family residence, 2 acre-feet per year is what they're estimating. The second one is Tumbleweed Energy LLC, 0.15 acre-feet per year. That sounds like for just some domestic use for their operation maintenance trailer, bathroom, etc., that they have on their energy site. So as I said earlier, the advisory committee has not met, so we don't know what the recommendation is. But these applications have been reviewed by admin staff as well as the water master engineer.
Are these new construction?
They are new construction.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, so they qualify because they don't have production right and they don't be over that the fairgrounds currently holds. Second one is from Lane Family Trust to Vulcan, 450 acre-feet of carryover water, similar to transfers that have been done in the past between these parties. The third one is Mediterranean Trust to Gene Wheeler Farms, 2,100 acre-feet of carryover water to supplement some agricultural use and avoid having to pay replacement water for Gene Wheeler Farms. And then the last one is transfer of 1 acre-feet of permanent right from RTS Orchards to Oro Vista Farms. And that's because Oro Vista Farms is currently not a party to the judgment and they want to intervene into the judgment. In order to intervene, you have to have at least 1 acre-feet of permanent production right. So that transfer of 1 acre-feet of permanent right qualifies them to intervene into the judgment. So for our staff, we sit here today without hearing comments from the advisory committee. We recommend we direct Director Parrish to approve these applications.
I had a question.
Yes.
On that fairgrounds one to Lancaster, 32 acre feet.
Mm-hmm.
Is that for that new wave building or what? I thought we were gonna end up drilling a well there. How are we selling our production right and drilling a well?
That's unrelated at this point, and this is, I would suggest you talk to Danny. I think it's come before your board already, or at least in things the city of Lancaster is providing for the fair. But I think
I just didn't want to see them do something that they weren't aware of it. Right, because didn't we talk about drilling a well?
Yeah, so Van Denham, you're thinking, or you're discussing the Paris Center and the Resiliency Center about, building a reliable water supply for them. And one concept is for them to drill a well on site to meet their water needs within the Paris Center. It'd be domestic use. Yeah.
They have that coordination station there too?
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be if they sold that water, what are they gonna use for a production right for that well?
again, I would refer you to probably the JPA or the association board that you are well acquainted with.
Thanks, Rob.
So, President Lane, that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further questions, Reverend General Manager? Okay, we're gonna go right back to General Manager's report.
All right, great. So I think you all were aware we had a little incident on 10th Street East 10th Street West, just north of Avenue O. There was a contractor working out there installing some telecommunication boxes, and they poked a hole in Avek's 24-inch pipeline or feeder in 10th Street. So we had an emergency shutdown out there. Fortunately, John and his staff responded very quickly. We had a repair clamp in stock, so our contractor went out, excavated the damage, and put on the repair clamp that you see in the photo there. So we're working on getting the permanent material ordered and scheduled. We'll schedule a shutdown with all of our affected customers. We'll go out there and remove a section of pipe and put a new section of pipe in where the damage occurred. So we do plan on recovering the costs associated with this repair from the contractor that did hit it. So quick update there. And then at this point, I'll turn it over to Tom Barnes, our water resource manager, and he's going to give some weather forecast update and update on the state water project.
Real quick, Matt, is that clamp just staying on that pipe?
For now, it allows us to, or did allow us to bring the pipeline back in service.
Yeah.
But we don't want to leave that long term.
So they're gonna pay for the full upgrade of the pipe?
Yeah, the permanent repair, which is removing this section of pipe and putting a new section in. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Matt, I had a question,
Yes.
and it might be for John. Did you take this picture when they were taking a nap on their break, or what was it? Yeah.
All right. Take it away, Tom.
All right, thanks, Matt. Good evening, President Lane, members of the board. I wanted to give you a brief presentation on the state's outlook as far as precipitation, where we're sitting, and also a little bit of forecast for this next month and what we're likely to see for weather for this next year as it relates to water supply for us. Here is the precipitation for the Northern Sierra. We call it the Northern Sierra 8 station. There are 8 stations they take measurements from to measure the precipitation. This is for the water year, which, as you know, it starts on October 1st, goes through September. So that little arrow there is showing you basically where we sit today, our current precipitation. And we're sitting at about 119% of average for this time of year. So, which is great. November, we had what they call this bomb cyclone, which brought in a lot of water in November in the state in Northern California. And that really helped us out. December was about a little bit above average for Northern Sierra. So that really helped us out there as well. But then it's pretty much flatlined since then. So January has been very dry. So you'll see kind of a flat line going across. So that's where we sit. We are in pretty good shape as far as Northern Sierra goes. And then the next slide will show you further down south in the state there, just below the Northern Sierra area. We look at the San Joaquin area, very important too, precipitation for, because this also supplies water to us for a state water project and then ultimately down here to the Antelope Valley. But what you'll notice there is we're quite a bit below average for this time of year. We're only sitting at 61% of average compared to the almost 120 for the northern section. So this the central part of the state, and then of course Southern California really it's been really hit hard with a lack of precipitation. This shows a little bit of that. We did again here get a little bit of a boost up in beginning in October, a little bit in December, November, December, but yeah, we pretty much have flatlined in January, and it's not looking very good for the rest of this month and even further in through spring. So it's going to be a rough time. So that doesn't help us out with the precipitation in San Joaquin area. Go ahead and go next one there. Let's see, this is the January forecast. Off to the left there is the monthly precipitation. This is for January, just looking at the most current precipitation and temperatures on the right. So with our monthly precipitation outlook, we're looking at very high pressure that's come over the Eastern Pacific. And what that has done is kind of a La Nina type of weather where it pushes a lot of the moisture up to the north. And so we end up getting a lot of dry dry precipitation and areas in the Southern California, and really most of California is expected to be very dry this January, this month. Temperature wise too, and you probably noticed we've seen a lot higher temperatures than normal. They're about 30 to 40% higher than normal we would have this time of year. So we're just going to see that probably all the way through January. As I mentioned, we might see a lot of that through springtime and some of these much higher temperatures than expected. That's good. This is atmospheric rivers landfall tool that we also look at and reference. If you're familiar with atmospheric rivers, that's basically rivers in the sky. In a sense, they're large sections of moisture that come in a stream form like a river, and so they come across the Pacific and head to the east, and then they as they hit landfall, they basically collapse the cloud or the atmospheric river, and then we get all the moisture. Well, as you'll notice there, what this chart here is showing all the way through January, that the two bars are basically lining up with California. So it's looking out into the Pacific Ocean, off to the left there, you're looking out to the Pacific Ocean all the way out to the end of this month, and you're seeing nothing there. That's basically showing that there's no atmospheric rivers, there's really no precipitation expected for all of January. So that's why we're not going to see anything. You'll see a little bit of the darker areas to the north. You'll get some things up in, maybe in northern Oregon, Washington, more likely in that area. But yeah, as far as California, it's extremely dry and continues to be. And obviously we're seeing the results of that with, especially Southern California is at its worst as far as dryness, with the fires and everything. That's really going to continue. So that's the end of my presentation, unless you have any questions.
Any questions?
Not a question. What's the capacity right now of Oroville?
The capacity of Oroville is the total capacity.
Or what are we?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We're sitting at just above historical average. So we're at about 120% of historical average. Yeah.
So percentage wise, you don't know what, somebody said there was only 60% water in Oroville right now.
That's of total capacity. Yeah. We look at two numbers when we look at reservoirs. We look at the historical average, which we're sitting at above historical average, but then we also look at total capacity. Yeah. So we're down to about 60% total capacity of the reservoir.
That's not good.
And part of the reason why it's at the 60% of capacity is because this time of year, DWR, or there's a requirement that they have to maintain flood storage capacity, because if we get some big storms at once and there's a lot of runoff in the Feather River, then there needs to be capacity to capture that water.
Yeah. Would you say that the Feather River, they run out in the ocean?
I didn't say that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's why we look at the two different numbers, because historical average is a good number for us to look at a percentage as far as water supply. But as Matt mentioned, total capacity, that's a good thing to look at as far as being able to manage the reservoirs for flood control. And if we do get atmospheric rivers and we get some floods coming in, they'll be able to manage those floods.
So we're at 15% state water.
Now. Current allocation state water projects, 15%. The way things are looking, not likely to see any bump up. I mean, that's the way it looks right now, but we know we have a lot of time left. There's still a lot of time. We have all the way through April. Even our final allocation generally comes in May, June timeframe, June at the latest. We'll have our final allocation in May. So we still got a little bit of time. So we may see some.
Thank you. Good report, but not good news.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, Grant.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good job. And then I have one additional slide, just some upcoming events. We have the advisory committee tomorrow at 10 a.m. online or at the Court Sale Water District office. We have an agency holiday on Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I have our Water Master meeting a week from tomorrow on the 22nd at 10 a.m. here at AVAC, also on Zoom. Got the AV Edge luncheon scheduled for the 29th at 11:30, and State Treasurer Fiona May is going to be at that event. And then we have a couple of directors attending the Aqua Washington, D.C. conference in late February. And I don't have any more slides, but I'd like to take this time to to thank Pam Clark for her service to AVAC. I know President Lane acknowledged her, but I also want to acknowledge it's been a pleasure working with Pam, and she'll do great things at Palmdale. They're very lucky to have her, and we're going to miss her.
Well, she'll be missed.
Yeah. So
Thank you,
Pam.
Pam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Does that conclude your report?
It does. Thank you.
We're just about there. Just a couple more items. We're going to be adjourned. The next one, we'll go to director's reports.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a report, and I think I have happy news to report. Over the last several months, many of us and our constituents have brought up Frank not being here, and we discussed that earlier in the meeting, that he's been on Zoom for at least 6 months. And in fact, Frank, your hair turned white since I saw you last, and we kind of laughed about that. But, and I've brought it to your attention, Mr. Chairman, I think other board members have, and we knew that Frank's house had not sold yet, and legitimately he was going to stay. But last night I called Frank, and I think transparency is the most important thing with board members. And I said, Frank, I'm having constituents ask, are you a resident or are you not? And Drew knows how serious that is with the political groups if you're not a resident. And Frank gave me great news, is that he's leased the house and he's going to talk to our attorneys and confirm his residency status. And what I have asked Frank, and he's agreed to, is that we get a letter from our attorneys once they look at everything, just verifying that the residency requirements are met. And then because all of us have a responsibility for that. And I've talked to you, George, about that. And I know Frank has been on the board by about 38 years and has been an incredible member of our board. So I think this is great news. So Frank, thank you. I appreciate it. And welcome back.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other board members? Okay, attorney's report.
Nothing for.
Okay, thank you. Request for future agenda items?
Mr. President, I do have one. I would like our attorneys to report back with Frank's residency status for the public so that I don't get any more questions. And Drew and Audrey and Gary, I think that would be very good for all of us.
I gotta respond to this a little bit. I do have a new, I just rented out a place for 1 more year, number one, and I will give it to my secretary. I also filed my 2024 California income tax, so I'm not a resident of Idaho or Florida. I do own property, like a lot of normal people do throughout the country. I do travel. I also get W-2s. I'm gonna get, I don't have to report to you. It's the county register certifies me and certifies each director, and directors do not certify other directors. So I just want to bring that up, just because they're looking to put somebody in that they want to put in for my spot. So you know what? I got 2 more years, and it just depends on where I want to live within my district, and I can live anywhere I want in my district as long as it has a permanent legal description and a permanent address.
And Frank, I think we're all happy that you've chosen to.
Why are you bringing it up?
I bring it up because,
I'm sorry.
no, Frank,
Let's move
point
on.
of order, Mr. President.
Let's move on.
I think
We've never had this on the board before.
We've never had this issue before, Frank.
Oh, come on.
You're putting our president in legal jeopardy. You're putting all of us in legal jeopardy. And we have a right for our attorney to let us know if you're legally on the board.
The attorney is not the county register reporter, okay? I'm gonna give it to my secretary who deals with them. You'll have an address on file, and what?
I don't think that's enough, Frank, and I'm asking that this be put on the agenda with a report from our attorney.
We'll have to determine if that's correct or not, but I do not think the board makes that decision in.
The board does not, George, I agree. But the board has responsibility to make sure that our residency requirements are followed.
Everybody have a good, week and, thank you for attending. Still a little more goodies over there.